And welcome to the UFC 263 preview show. Tom Beno here, along with According to Woods. As always, we've got a lot to get through. We got 14 fights. We got 2 title fights, 2 title rematches, and history. The first ever non-main event, non-title 5-round fight. That's a mouthful to say, but Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz are going to make history tonight. So, Mr. Woods, how are you? You ready for this stacked card from
Oh,
Arizona?
I am so ready. The fact that we have, a Diaz brother returning, it's funny because at the press conference, they kind of lifted the Arizona ruling for marijuana and whatever. So, I mean, you're talking about history. Nate, God, who is it? Is it Nick or Nate? I always confuse the
It's
two.
Nate.
Nate. Yes, Nick is the older one. Yes.
Yep.
So Nate Diaz essentially ushering this weekend, this Saturday's event of historic proportions, and he did it with a blunt in mouth. So yes.
So, we've got 14 fights. We actually have 5 early prelims, 4 televised prelims, and then 5, count them 5, main card bouts, of course. So let's start things off with the big boys at heavyweight. It's Carlos Felipe taking on Jake Collier. The UFC website actually does not have odds for this matchup somehow, some way.
You know what's odd? If these two big heavyweights that almost harken back to the days of when I started watching Bellator and the Ron Sparks and the Eric Prindos, big heavyweights that couldn't get past the third round, but that first 90 seconds was a banger. That's what I usually tell my wife. But in any accord, the fact of the matter is I don't want to see this go the 15 minutes. I absolutely do not at all. And I think it would be odd, speaking of odds and not having it on the UFC website, I think it would be odd if this goes to a decision. I want these two on a banging cards like this to come out and bang. And I know that's what the prototype Jake Collier wants to do because I mean, he's that corn-fed, Missouri-based, just stand and bang. Does he know jujitsu? Probably not. Right?
Well, but you know who does? Carlos Felipe.
Agreed. Agreed. Which I mean, not to kind of take the run from you, but that's who I've got to win this because I just feel that Carlos Felipe has more tools of the trade to get the job done and probably get a second round finish, whether that be submission or KO over. He's the prototype, but a prototype of maybe a one-dimensional fighter at this juncture of his career is Collier.
So, Carlos Felipe, actually, thank God for Tapology, because Tapology does have odds here. Felipe is the slight favorite. Looking at their fight history, Felipe actually has just 2 fights in the UFC, no, 3 fights in the UFC, losing to Spivak, defeating De Castro and Tafa. Not exactly the best of fights, but some noted names. And I cannot believe this about Collier, but we mentioned Collier and like where he is at his stage of his career. He's 6 years the older of Felipe. Collier used to fight at light heavyweight. He weighed in yesterday at 264 pounds. That is crazy.
That almost is reminiscent of Ilir Latifi last week, right?
Yeah.
He's a way lighter, and now he just looks like a juggernaut. But yeah, I'm gonna say fuck Greg Hardy because he's the reason why we have Yoran De Castro. If you're not getting a win over Yoran De Castro, who looks kind of like me. Like I take my shirt off, my summer body, I look like Yoran De Castro. Maybe there's a little bit of heat there or whatever, but I think it was him and Philippe. One of the most like garbage bag fights I'd ever seen in my life. I wanted my money back, even though it was a fight night in Abu Dhabi. I wanted to resend their Abu Dhabi kind of free pass, man. So fuck Greg Hardy because we have Yoran De Castro, and again, that win over Yoran De Castro. Is it really a win? That's almost a gimme fight. That's as gimme as it gets. So again.
So the thing here about Collier is like he's lost to Devin Clark and Tom Aspinall, which aren't bad losses. He's beaten John Vellante, but the John Vellante of 2020 is not the John Vellante of the mid 2010s. And Marcel Fortuna, Alberto Uda, like as Collier is getting older, like he's starting to lose out of his prime and whatnot. Like these are fights, like somebody has to win the big one. These are two guys who need to step it up a little bit. And for as talented as Collier has been in his career, like you mentioned, the jiu-jitsu kind of concerns me, but it also concerns me as a fight fan in that I don't want this fight to go the full 15 minutes. This is the kind of fight that needs to end in the first round, because these are two guys where if it gets to a third round, it's going to be one of those heavyweight fights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the one where I think strategically the UFC brass of McMaynard and whoever else is in the matchmaking team,
Sean Shelby,
right? They put on with the express intent to have Daniel Cormier and a returning Joe Rogan, right? He's back in the booth. He's back doing the weigh-ins and everything, at least for this show. This is the one where we're going to get the gif of, those two for sure.
Actually, no. Cormier's on the commentary side. It's Felder.
Nothing against Small Felder, but I want the gifts of Cormier and Rogan.
You need. I'd say for a fight like Philippe and Collier, you need the comedy element on the commentary team. And I love Felder for his analytical.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like insightful former fighters, and they've done an impeccable job, both Fox and ESPN, in terms of coaching these fighters to, and the fighters that have podcasts to get them to this echelon where they can, concisely do it. You think of the Brian Stans, the Dominic Cruzes over in PFL, but formerly of the UFC is God, what is his name? Jiu-Jitsu ace. Oh, Kenny Florian.
Yeah.
Kenny Florian. Alan Joban is kind of working his way in there. Like, it's just impeccable. But, like, again, that DC Rogan kind of, team, I love the gifts after.
I was going to say, I don't appreciate them for the analytical as much as I appreciate them for the comedy and the relief of some boring fights.
Oh, sorry, Thomas. Just want to tell you, it's entertainment. We live in a world of Jake Paul fighting and Lamar Odom fighting.
Oh, don't remind me about those fights.
Aaron Carter. It all sells. It's all money and ass in every 18 inches, folks. That's what we're here. Right. Olympic wrestling almost got kicked out of the actual Olympics despite actually having its origins in Greece in pancration. I rest my case.
Moving on, we have Ziam taking on Luigi Vendramini. So, what do we have the odds here? Let's see. Well, the UFC odds have minus 125 for Ziam, plus 102 for for Luigi here. So let's take a look at these two now. Fares Ziam, I believe this is a lightweight fight, coming off a win over Jamie Malarkey in his last fight. Lost to Don Maj at UFC 242. I'm kind of biased because I like Don Maj. I watched him when he was in the EFC Africa. And outside of that, those are his only two UFC fights. Before the UFC, he went on a 5-fight win streak. So now he's taking on Vendramini, another jiu-jitsu expert. He also has only 2 fights in the UFC, losing his first fight in 2018, Lizia Zaleski. That took 2 years off. He had a fight with Nick Heim canceled and scored a win over Justin Orai in October.
Yeah, so I like Luigi just because I cannot pronounce his name. But you talked about his, jiu-jitsu, his jiu-jitsu prowess, right? But the last win that he had was a KO, right? So that just shows you in terms of the whole scope of his arsenal. I'm picking him to be a favorite and a finishing favorite. I'd say he gets it done maybe late second round or early third round. I don't believe this will go to a decision.
Sorry to interrupt, but look at that on the Tapology. We got the 50-50, well, the near 50-50.
Yeah, but see, I just think after the Collier, Philippe fight, I think there's just going to be some momentum. And you got to remember, this is, again, once more, a live full capacity crowd in Arizona. And I think they're going to be, after that heavyweight fight, they're kind of going to usher a better performance out of each and every fighter. And I believe that that first fight that heavyweight fight is going to be a barn burner and somebody's getting knocked out. So with that being said, I think these two are actually going to ride some of that momentum, and we will see a finish. I say Luigi, maybe late second, somewhere in the third.
I'd say the only concern you have about Luigi is he's given up 5 inches in height to Perez Ziam, and he's given up 2 inches in reach. But the talent wise, I think Luigi is one of those guys who can get around any disadvantages in the reach department.
Have you seen Darion win?
Yes.
Okay. Rest my case.
We move on now to the return of the teenage dream himself, Chase Hooper, as he takes on Steven Peterson. The UFC odds have this as the pick'em, -108 and -114. Of note, though, Steven Peterson was the only individual yesterday to miss weight, coming in at a 2.5 pound weight miss. And I'm surprised Hooper only got 20% of the purse. I thought that would qualify for a 30. But nevertheless, Chase Hooper he's gonna get a bonus of some money, just not more than, it's just a little less than I thought it would be. So Mr. Hooper himself, coming off, of course, he has his UFC debut against Daniel Taymur, who, it looks a little iffy, but he ends up pulling off the victory in the first round. Then he loses to Alex Caceres, and I think that was a case of, a flaw that promotions like the UFC do. They push the young talent too soon. It was too soon for him to be with a veteran like Alex Caceres. And he looked in bad shape against Peter Barrett for the first 2 rounds, but he comes back, gets the heel hook in the last couple of minutes, and scores the win. So he's got some momentum on his side, but I still am kind of concerned about him taking on a 27-fight pro like Steven Peterson, although the weight miss has me very concerned, and so does looking at this. So you look at Mr. Peterson, lost to Brandon Davis in his UFC debut a couple of years back, takes a split decision over Matt Bissett, loses to the violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena, a fight which I actually misremembered as him missing weight. No, it was the violent Bob Ross who missed weight for that fight. He has his own loss to Alex Caceres, and he has a spinning back fist knockout of Martin Bravo in his last fight. So, I think I'm concerned for Hooper when you consider the experience edge and the fact that the UFC has been pushing him, to the point like the Caceres fight. But this is the kind of winnable matchup. Like this is the kind of fight where the UFC is gonna go, see he can win against an experienced pro.
No, 1,000%. And the catch-22 about experience is, again, there's trauma that happens on one's body. Basically getting and cultivating that experience, right? So I think this is a nice, ripe moment, despite the fact that Peterson will have a 2.5, almost 3 pound weight advantage over Hooper. I don't think it's going to matter because, again, like you said, he was getting, mollywopped, right, in his last fight. And he ended up, getting a almost a Hail Mary-esque heel hook, right? So I think that's going to happen here. And I think Peterson is probably going to, I don't want to say he's going to overlook Hooper, right? But I just think he's going to want to assert his dominance. And that's not something that you want to do with Chase Hooper because he will exploit what you think is a domineering type ideology. And in his last fight, in his last win, he showed you that he can capitalize at all costs. So that's why I'm going with Chase Hooper, and I think he needs to finish. He does.
Finish. I agree. I'd say, and plus, you also have to consider Hooper is 10 years Peterson's junior. He's got one of those lanky bodies. He's got a 3-inch, height edge according to this, and a 5-inch reach advantage. That's gonna be key, the reach. So with him being younger, quicker, maybe he doesn't have the experience, but this is considering Peterson, the role, not the good role that he's been on. This is the opportunity that Hooper needs. He needs a second round, third round finish here. I think Peterson might be a little too tough for that first round finish, But I think if Hooper can get a big win here in this one, it's going to set him back on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he needs it. And I believe that in terms of, I guess, the UFC doing their propaganda, we saw in Mickey Gall, we've seen it a litany of times where, they might have, Sage Northcutt, that
Mm-hmm.
they kind of, usher somebody into the spotlight a little bit more premature than what they're ready for, as you eloquently have stated. I just think maybe, it's like I'm an older sibling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your family, your parents kind of get it right when kid number 2, 3, or 4 come about. So I was the crash test dummy. So I think I think the UFC gets it right, and Chase Hooper, basically ascends to what his potential was when the UFC signed him.
For sure. Now we move on to an interesting bout. So Terrence, we weren't supposed to have any UFC debutantes, the kind of that I would promote on the MMAprospects.com. But we've had a little situation. Frank Camacho involved in a very serious car accident. Thoughts go out to him. I hope he has a speedy recovery. So he is out against Matt Frivola, and in steps Terrence McKinney. So now Matt Frivola, probably one of the unluckiest fighters in the UFC in the pandemic era, even pre-pandemic era. He was supposed to, before this Camacho fight, which has been replaced with McKinney, he was supposed to fight Atman Azayatar in January. What happened? Well, Azayatar got fired for some time because he broke COVID protocols over in Abu Dhabi. Uh, he ends up actually fighting Arman Sarukian and ends up losing a decision. And then in 2020, my God, look at this. He beat Luis Pena in October at the end of 2019. He's supposed to fight Roosevelt Roberts, and then the COVID pandemic hit. Then he's supposed to fight Camacho. This is the original one. And then he actually had to withdraw because his cornerman tested positive for COVID. Then he's scheduled to fight Roosevelt Roberts again in September, and then Matt Frivola injured his foot. Talk about one of the guys that has needed a good break. And here's an opportunity for Mr. Frivola. He takes on Terrence McKinney, again, making his UFC debut, coming off a 3-fight win streak. Actually, McKinney was in the Contender Series just a couple of years ago where he was knocked out by Sean Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
He actually has 2 sub-90-second finishes as of late in the LFA, knocking out Tonino Gavino in 17 seconds back in April, and then defeating Michael Ortiz back in June at LFA 106 and LFA 109.
That was last week.
Yes, that was last week. Oh my God.
I had Michael on the According to Woods podcast, so I know how hyped he was for this fight.
And we're just coming off, if I'm not mistaken, we are just coming off a week where I think, wasn't there somebody who knocked out Matt Frem to win an LFA title, make their UFC debut on short notice, and won?
Yeah. No, that's it. And that's the importance of staying ready, getting ready, what have you. And we're seeing it in this particular instances. It was the LFA champion. He was formerly of Black House, the Brazilian gentleman, Gregory Rodriguez, I believe.
Yes, Rodriguez, yes.
Yes, yeah. Great guy. So yes, that's kind of where we are here. In the instance, I mean, yes, you spoke about, the steamroller. He's the steamroller. I call him the freeloader because unfortunately, his name doesn't benefit his fighting style. And yes, he might have had as bad of a COVID kind of era career as one Leon Edwards, right? But the fact of the matter is, Matt Frivola, especially as scary as McKinney has looked in his last 2 weeks, last 2 wins, right? One being literally last week. I think he's uniquely suited to kind of beat Frivola. Now, here's the asterisk. If this goes to a decision, I'm almost damn near guaranteeing it be Frivola being the win. McKinney has the kind of scary flash knockout.
He needs a quick finish, is what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. And McKinney could be kind of lacking a little bit, considering the fact that he just cut weight, right? Fought won a main event and whatever, probably packed on a couple pounds, and then his body's reacting to that, and then get the call that he's waiting for his entire career,
I mean,
right?
I say it, time and time again when we're talking about these fighters making quick turnarounds and with the weight cuts and everything. Tony Ferguson, when he cut weight for, just because, but the last time he fought, he was supposed to fight Khabib and then fought Gagey, so he cut weight again, and Gagey pretty much wiped the floor with him.
Yeah. So I don't know. So McKinney, for his long term kind of, I mean, his kidneys, his liver, all of that jazz that gets affected by back to back simultaneous weight cuts. I think you need to finish off Frivola, and Frivola. I don't know, maybe, his mindset might be off of all the pulled fights or whatever, but I almost feel like Frivola is ripe for a flash knockout.
For Frivola to win this fight, in my opinion, he's got to get this fight to the ground and often and just grind it out.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So now we go to the featured Fight Pass ESPN Plus early, whatever you want to call it, the first portion of the prelims. Pannie Kianzad, number 11 ranked flyweight, taking on the veteran, the former bantamweight title challenger, Alexis Davis. So we're gonna have a look here at their comparisons. Let me see if I can flip over to the Topology quicker. There you go. All right. Pannie Kianzad, about 7 or 8 years the younger of Alexis Davis, also coming in with 1-inch height edge, but a 2-inch reach advantage for the alligator. So we look at Pannie Kianzad, again, the number 11 ranked, actually bantamweight. Pardon me, not a flyweight, bantamweight. So she's coming on a 3-fight win streak, winning against Jessica Clark, winning against Beth Correa, and winning against Sijara Sarge Eubanks. Her last loss actually came in 2019. She was the debut opponent for Julia the Panda Avila.
Mm-hmm.
Now we take a look at the role Alexis Davis was on. So Alexis Davis actually just returned in February. She was gone for all of 2019, 2020. But that wasn't all the pandemic. I believe she was becoming a mother at that time,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. So losses to Caitlin Chikagian, Maya, and Arujo. So she takes some time off. She gets up getting paired with Sabina Mazo, another one of these young prospects. Actually, I think a good friend of Chris Cyborg's too, a Cyborg mentee. And they're pushing her. And Alexis Davis actually pulls off the win. So now you're taking on somebody ranked like Pannie Kianzad. And this is that test for Alexis Davis of, is she still that ranked, bantamweight competitor from the days of old where she challenged Ronda Rousey back in the early days for the bantamweight championship or not? And I don't know. I mean, Sabina Mazo is still one of these developing fighters. Kianzad, with a win, she's trying to get a win here over a name like Alexis Davis to break into the top 10.
No, 1,000%. And it's funny because like we first found out about Kianzad over her kind of inclusion in the Ultimate Fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she, even though she's younger, she feels a lot older and tenured. The fact that she's not even 30 yet. I thought her and Alexis Davis are around the same age just because the amount of fights and times that she's been promoted in the UFC. So I kind of felt like they were neck and neck. I didn't know there was that much of a age disparity between the two. But with that all being said, um, I don't know. I don't want to count Alexis Davis out, but I do believe that again. I don't know the ideology behind it. If Alexis Davis is fighting for another title contention, or she's just trying to show to her her young child that anything is possible, prove to herself that everybody's possible. But that's different than somebody who is gunning for a title shot. So the motivations might be different. Alexis Davis is a KG veteran, a wily veteran, if you will. That will find a way to win if you give her something to exploit. But I kind of feel like, and I think that it's going to go to a decision either way, but I think the decision goes to Kianzad. And I don't know if it's going to be unanimous or a split. It could very well be a split, because I don't think that Alexa is going to roll over. I
No,
don't
I
think
know
that.
she'll put. I no, I'm going on the same path you are. I think Alexis Davis is going to put up a fight. It's just I think Patty said it's just better, and obviously Alexis Davis is a little more towards the sunset of her career than the sunrise. Patty Kianzad, meanwhile, she's gunning her way up those ranks. She maybe could be a title challenger within a year or two.
Absolutely, and Alexis knows what that is like, and but the fact of the matter is, I also believe that Banzai Kiananzad basically needs a statement making performance here because can you remember if you're a filthy casual? God, I love those guys or gals. Uh, but if you're a filthy casual, would you know about Kianzad? How many gifable moments has she created in her UFC tenure that dates back to the Ultimate Fighter, right? Like, does she have any flash knockouts, some crazy submissions?
Not really. I mean, credit to her. Like we were saying, the fact that she only ended up losing to Shiazon on the Ultimate Fighter. Her only lost to Shiazon and Avila, and she has wins over Eubanks, Gray, Rose Clark. Great on her. Actually, she's also an Invicta veteran. I forgot.
Yep,
She ends
absolutely.
up. She has. I'll say she didn't have a good run in Invicta, but she did again. Clark, Evinger, Kaufman. Like this is the time that Kianza needs to break out, and a win over Alexis Davis could be that, like you said, that statement victory.
Absolutely, but again, she needs a statement finish, not just a statement performance. The only way that it's going to be exciting, and you're going to prove to the UFC matchmakers that you're worthy of a top 10 ranking, is I mean, both of you, if not, you know, Davis essentially obliterated, like looking like ground meat in terms of facials. Like you need that type of statement if you don't get a finish.
Moving on now to the prelim portion, the televised prelims, the ESPN prelims. We're gonna have a top 15 battle to start things off between Movsar Evoliv and Hakeem Dawodu, number 14, number 15 in the featherweight ranks. So we take a look here at the topology. Very even in terms of the physicality wise. We look at Dowdu out of Canada on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fight win streak. Austin Arnett, Kyle Bokniak, Yoshinori Hori, Julio Ars, and Zubaira Tukov. And he's taking on Movsar Avalev, a heavily talented fighter out of Russia, an undefeated fighter still, who was coming off the win over Nick Lentz back in January. Split decision. I'll say I kind of expected, maybe a unanimous decision there, and with how MMA judging is in 2021, maybe it should have been unanimous. But regardless, he's undefeated. Win over Nick Lentz, win over Mike Grundy, Enrique Barzola. I'd say he's a former M1 champ, yeah, former M1 bantamweight champion. So he actually moved up in weight in the UFC, and he's still on the roll that he's on. So both these guys, one of these guys is going to be looking for a big win here to further get them closer to the top 10.
No, 1,000%. But I mean, again, perfect. There's nothing that quite,
I
uh,
love this matchmaking. I'll say
yes,
that.
no, 100%. The Voodoo is definitely one of those highlight, fighters. He can bring a tough fight. He gives you the flashiness, but also the the overall acumen that you want to cheer for him. But mobs are like Evolov is something different. He's one of those Russian kind of Russian Federation fighters that just have no quit in them. You have to kill them to essentially defeat them. I don't know. Maybe it's the win over the over in Bellator, where we have a new world champion of similar kind of descent. I think that definitely plays a part. Um,
And the thing I like about Ovolov is not just these Russian background, I will crush you with my wrestling and everything. He's got, like it says here, he also has the Muay Thai training here. So he's got the striking if he needs to follow it on.
yeah,
And I think he'll have to against Dowdu.
yes, absolutely. But even if I think in terms of getting even if it's a decision, I think there's going to be some more things that the Russian has, in terms of their arsenal than the Voodoo has, and I just think that's going to be the tail of the tape. Now, does that mean Hakeem isn't going to be a big star? No, no, he's still going to be a good big star, but the star ascension has to wait until after Mobzar.
This is one of those fights where both of them have high potential, but only one of them can advance on, unless they put up another one of those fight of the year performances like Bonzanibio did.
Yeah, and I think this might be. I don't think. I think you're definitely going to find the bonuses within the last three fights, the main events. But theoretically speaking, if they kind of divulge that to anything on the prelims, I think
This is a
the slate
sleeper.
of yeah, 100%.
Definitely, I agree with you. And you know what else is a sleeper? This one. And look at it crazy. Talk about stacked cards. Lauren Murphy versus Joanne Calderwood. This could be the fight to determine the next challenger for Valentina Shevchenko. It is the second fight on the televised prelims. You tell me that means that's not representative of just how stacked a card this is going to be. So Lauren Murphy is actually the underdog in this fight according to the UFC website. That's kind of the one I scratch my head at. Not to say JoJo Calderwood isn't good, but Lauren Murphy, she's called lucky for a reason, and she has been on a bit of a roll. She comes in on a 4-fight win streak we can see over here at Topology, winning over Mara Barella, Andrea Lee, Roxanne Modafferi, and Lilia Shakirova. So I'd say it's not too far off in the odds, but I thought it'd be more of a pick-em than say one of these girls is a favorite, because JoJo Calderwood, do have to credit and do have to cite, she was pegged last year to get a shot at Valentina Shevchenko, but instead, because the fight got delayed, she wanted a stay busy fight, so she takes on Jennifer Maia, ends up getting submitted. Maia gets the title shot instead, gets her pounding courtesy of Shevchenko. So Calderwood instead has to fight the former challenger in Jessica Ai, and wipes the scorecards clean on a unanimous decision. So she has the opportunity to get the title shot again, but now she has to go through Lauren Murphy. Not an easy task in this one.
Lauren Murphy has, it's weird to say a career resurgence because, she has always been on the up and up, but, there was a point in her career where she kind of went in the skids a bit, as the JoJo Calderwood, right? So they're very evenly matched, very evenly skilled. I don't even know if I can pick one. I mean, both of them are amazing athletes, amazing fighters. If you had a daughter, if you're doing jiu-jitsu, if you're striking or whatever, and you need a role model, these two, man, woman, or child, whoever wants and needs a role model, these two, Lauren Murphy and JoJo Calderwood, are exactly what you want in role models. And yes, I think they both, regardless of how this fight goes, both of them will be contending against Valentina because they need bodies for Valentina for sure.
Valentina's running out of challengers.
Yeah, so I think they both get their shot. It's just who gets it first. This one is so close to pick. I do know that Lauren Murphy has been training with the likes of Brittany Cloudy, former LFA veteran, and I mean, she's been getting good work, as is Joanne Calderwood, relocating to Vegas at a syndicate. It's just, yeah, man, I don't know.
Nah, this is another sleeper for fight of the night. And again, it's crazy that this is a contenders fight and this isn't on the main card. This isn't even a featured prelim.
This could easily, I mean, if we were playing into like maybe next week or whenever they have a fight night, this is a fight night main event. I don't know how it isn't.
I'd say I'm a little surprised, I don't know next week's card off the top of my head, but I'm surprised they didn't pair this at the very least, and have it be the co-main to like next week where it's Korean Zombie and Ige.
Well, you got to remember, right? The Joanne and Maya deal. Joanne just wants to fight. It doesn't matter when. It's that Scottish damn heritage, man. Like
it's the fact that she wants a paycheck.
Yeah, that too. And Vegas doesn't have any taxes, from what I hear. So hey.
There you go. So, all right. So we continue on with this prelim card. So here's an interesting one. We're talking about how the main and co-main tonight are rematch city. This is also a trip to rematch city. It's Eric, ya boy. Okay, hang on. The joke kind of moved. Hang on, it's Eric, your boy, and Anders throwing that old YouTube poop
Oh no.
as he takes on Darren Stewart. So this match actually did happen earlier this year, and it was the very week after we saw Aljamain Sterling win the championship on a disqualification. Anders throws his own illegal knee. For whatever reason, it's called a no contest. I don't understand the circumstances as to why, but regardless, it's called a no contest. So now these two are going to fight again, but they've won at middleweight last time. This time, they're both moving up to light heavyweight. Now, both these guys are guys who flip back and forth between middleweight and light heavyweight. But just kind of insane to me how they're going to just move up a weight class for a rematch here. So Eric, your boy, Anders, he had all the potential in the world come like 2018 and stuff. He looked like he was going to be a thing. And then, let's see, so he has the win over Marcus Perez. He loses to Lyoto Machida, defeats Tim Williams. He and Thiago Santos has a heck of a short notice main event, which he's too tired to compete from. But that's one of the wins losses where, his stock still rises. Then he loses to Elias Theodorou. Then he loses to Khalil Roundtree. He beats Vincius Moreira.
Yeah.
And that's a rebound victory. Then he defeats Gerald Meerschaert in a fight where it's kind of debatable that Meerschaert might have won that fight. And then he goes and loses to Krzysztof Jotko. So this is the kind of fight where he needs a victory here. But can you say so too does Darren the Dentist Stewart? So, lost to Edmund Shabazian back at the Ultimate 18 finale, another fight where, a little controversy. Beat Bevon Lewis. Beat Javon Wynn, another one of those close fights that he gets in. Lost to Bartosz Fabinski in Cage Warriors. That was during the pandemic where they actually brought a UFC fight to Cage Warriors. A weird time we were living in. Then goes and submits Maki Pitolo. Then lost a split decision to Kevin Holland. Again, he is Mr. Split Decision, is Darren Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah, this one is a flip a coin. I mean, this is... And, Eric... Wasn't it? It was Eric, right? That was beating the tar out of Darren Stewart, and then...
Eric was on the offensive when the illegal foul happened.
Yeah. It wasn't like Darren Stewart had any... this is more... Eric Anders screwing up than it was Darren Stewart's prowess. I don't think it, even with the added weight, I think it actually benefits Anders a little bit more because, again, he was so dominant over Stewart, and that was so, that happened this year, right? So with that all being said, I don't think that there's an experience gap that Darren Stewart could have that kind of thwarts it. I think it also has to be like Eric screwing up that would cost him the victory. But I guarantee you, Eric Anders, whoever was the ref for the Jan Sterling fight, to have done that first contest between them, because otherwise he would have won. He would have won decisively.
Yeah, so this is a fight where, I'm concerned because Anders doesn't have the greatest of fight IQ.
No.
And then we have the added weight and everything, but this is a fight where, he's favorited. He needs to win. Darren Stewart is the veteran talent, where he could get a rebound win off of. I'm concerned he's not going to get a finish in this one. It's going to go into another weird decision, but I'll still go with Anders. It's just I'm not as high as Anders as I used to be. I used to be high on this guy, and
no, either way, right? Whether it be light heavy or the weight class below it. Are we going to see either men, win, lose, or draw, contend for a title? Absolutely
not anytime soon.
No, I don't think it'll ever happen.
All right, featured prelim of the evening. Drew Dober returns, and he takes on Brad Riddell. So, actually, there's no odds on this one either. But according to Tapology, Dober is the slight favorite. So now we go and have a look at these two. So Drew Dober coming in, I believe, off a loss to Islam Makhachev. Yeah, against Islam Makhachev. The very weird arm triangle from half guard that he pulled off. I'm very high on Makhachev. I believe he's the future lightweight champion of the world. but not a terrible loss. And before that, Dober he's another one of those guys where he was like stuck in, as we would say in professional wrestling, mid card hell, and then started going on a roll. Ends up beating Camacho, Tuck, Polo. He knocks out Polo Reyes quickly, knocks out Nasrat Hakpurst quickly, ends up defeating Alexander Hernandez, another one of these young talents that can't seem to get the big win that they need. And Makachev, again, not a bad loss. So Dober coming in, he'll need a rebound, but he's coming in still on a bit of a roll. He's taking on the 9-1 Brad Riddell, of course, one of the city kickboxing boys, trains with Izzy Adesanya, Kai Kara France, another guy who's trying to break through, and he's on a 6-fight win streak. He's 3-0 in the UFC, beating Malarkey, beating Mustayev, and defeating Alex Da Silva last year.
Yeah, I think this is going to be those variables, right? Unfortunately, what befell the city kickboxing team over the pandemic and what have you is a loss of one of their teammates, right? And I think this is also going to play a little bit into Israel Adesanya, right? Where people are talking about Izzy and his loss to Jan Blachowicz and whatever. I think the variable is the loss of a teammate that's going to push them a little bit more. That's going to have them dig a little bit deeper than they would before. And I, as great as Drew Dober is, I just think the odds are in Brad Riddell's favor, as it is in Israel Adesanya. And I want to believe that they want to win big for their fallen comrade. So I don't know how it's going to happen. I just think that even without that little bit, Brad Riddell,
the only question I have about Riddell and in terms of like this fight is, Drew Dober is another level compared to the guys that he's fought. This might be a little tough of a task because Dober, he's number 13. This is number 13 versus unranked. Riddell, great opportunity to get into the top 15 in a very still stacked lightweight division in the UFC. But Dober, he's looking for a big win to get him, into that number 10, number 11 spot.
Yeah, 1,000%. But for me, I just
you want the story, and that's the conflicting thing about this match.
Yeah, and I don't even think I want it. I know it's gonna play into like the performances, right? Where maybe something, a Hail Mary kind of opening that wouldn't be there before, but Brad Riddell can find it and explode it over Drew Dober, who could be fighting flawlessly, but one kind of macro second or inch or what have you, it opens up for Brad Riddell to essentially get a win over Drew Dober. So that's what I figure.
Pay-per-view main card time. And we start off with a very tense matchup. If you saw the weigh-ins, these two, they won't be trading Christmas cards anytime soon, I'll tell you that much. It's Paul Craig, the submission expert himself, taking on Jamal Hill. The very last two in the light heavyweight rankings right now, 14 and 15. So we take a look at their Tapology comparisons. And by the way, I love Hill's profile picture on here. He looks completely horrified by what he sees next to him. Hill actually the moderate favorite at a minus 300. I think that's a little steep there. Little steep. But we take a look at Paul Craig right here. Paul Craig coming off a win over Mauricio Shogun, who actually that was their second fight. They fought to a draw previous. So he's on a 4-fight unbeaten streak. His only losses have come to Alonzo Menafield, Jimmy Crute. Losses since 2018. Yeah, the Pedro and Roundtree fight 2017. Over the last years, though, we're starting to see a little breakthrough for Bear Jew himself. But he's taking on Jamal Hill, who is a perfect 8-0. One of these guys who came from the Contender Series, got the big win over Alexander Popek, ends up getting contracted to the UFC, defeats Darko Stosic. I'm trying to see, this is actually a no contest against Klidson Abreu. Did he win or lose this fight originally? Because it says neat to the, but this had to be an originally a win for Hill, yeah.
Right.
Fight, oh, that's right. He was He tested positive for the Mary Jane. I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Oh man, I wish
So
this
he'd
was
be
in
on a
Arizona.
three fight win streak because he beat Alvin St. Preux in his last fight. So
Yeah.
Alvin St. Preux, not the Alvin St. Preux of say 2016, but
No.
that's still a big noted win.
Yeah. No. This one I'm gonna have to go all on emotion. I really don't like the attitude of one Jamal Hill. He's cocky, and I almost so I kind of have this kind of weirdness about like Usman, Adesanya. Do I think they're incredible fighters? Absolutely. Am I gonna go have a beer with them? Probably not. They don't they irk me in some ways. And
I'll
Jamal,
say this is the kind of fight. I mean, we're going to talk about attitude. I didn't like Paul and Craig's attitude when he came after
no,
him,
yeah, agreed.
especially after we had the figgy shove for no reason, and then they make that rule that hey, if you touch the other guy, your fight's going to be off. You're going to be suspended. And Craig just goes off it. That's like, see, this is one of those. This is the kind of fight where I talk about Joanne Calderwood and uh Laura Murphy, how it should be on the make. And see, this is the fight I demote to the prelims. I wish we could have
Lauren
JoJo and
Murphy.
Lauren on this card.
Yeah. No, agreed. Agreed. So I mean, all right. So let's go Jamal Hill. Right. I mean, I I think it would be kind of poetic justice in the sense that Paul Craig is the one who instituted the shove and what have you, and he basically gets starched by one Jamal Hill. But then again, emotions could play, and Jamal come in to kind of you know up the game, the ante of
Mm-hmm.
Paul Craig, and go like, oh, Bearjaw, you want some shoving? I get some shoving, and then
And what I'm looking at, like, at the topology and thing, like, I'm a little surprised that Jamal Hill, is 30. I was gonna say Jamal Hill's also the younger fighter, but it's actually not by much. I mean, he has the physical edges, the 1 inch height, 3 inch reach, but I'm surprised in the H factor. This is one of those toss ups. I feel like I'm just gonna go Hill, but I don't know. I'm not even sure if it's gonna be a finish. I think Paul Gregg might be. If it's a finish, it's gonna be a late finish.
yeah. So who are you picking officially?
I think I'm gonna go Hill.
Okay, I'll go Craig.
Yeah, this is one of those fights where, like I'm kind of curious because of how Craig, was so intense. Like, it's cool, I guess, to have an opener with the tenseness, but I guess I would rather our next fight be the main card opener as they switch back over to the UFC page. It's the legend Demian Maia, the former middleweight and welterweight title challenger, taking on a guy whose name I can't seem to remember. Can you?
No, it's not. Remember thy name, is it? Is it?
It's let's see, it's Bilal Muhammad. Remember the name?
Oh yes, I remember him jumping up and down over that the eye poke from Leon Edwards. I don't remember his name. I just remember his hops. He got game. That man can jump. No man, I got Damian Maya quick submission because I just
Ooh.
yes I do I don't dig, and after this I actually want to see Damian hang it up after this. I would like to see the yeah.
Wow.
What does Damian Maya have to prove?
No, I mean, I agree with you that Damian Maya is near the end of his career, and for him to go out on a win, I don't want to see him get knocked out like he did against Gilbert Burns again. No, I wish I could see him coming off, a win, but I feel like Bilal Muhammad would have the bigger momentum here, considering the fact. I'll say, and that's the only reason I say to keep this fight on the main card if we had to sub in JoJo and Lauren, because Bilal Muhammad, I do kind of feel a little bad for. He and Rocky should be rematching again, but Rocky instead gets Mr. 209 himself.
Money, 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 money. Everybody's got a price.
Yeah. I can't. I'll say now you're getting me to think of LA Knights and Cameron Grimes' ladder match tomorrow night on NXT.
Why not? Why not? But no, I see. I just Bilal Muhammad is almost. I'm not saying that he's not a good fighter. He is, but I feel like he believes. Like, remember thy name, right? But he hasn't given enough performances where it would be indicative for him or advantageous for any one fan.
can I ask a question then? Do you
Sure.
think that this is the UFC is trying to do a setup here?
Maybe, but this is but a setup for who, right? Is it to kind of starch below Muhammad, or oh, you want to be like Anderson Silva, Damian Maya, and not want to retire? Well, we're gonna let you, go out on your shield and have a reason why we should justify you. Because yes, you might be a legend in jiu-jitsu, but you're not a legend in the UFC, and the UFC is where it matters. So even because of that narrative, I actually want Damian Maia to win even more so. But again, he can't take any more damage. He cannot, because if he tries to test his chin with Bilal Muhammad's hands, damn it, he's going to be Ronnie Garvin, and the hands of stone of Bilal Muhammad will knock the shit out of Damian Maia.
Like I feel like I'm gonna go Muhammad. I don't think he's gonna finish Maya. I think it's gonna go to a decision. But
yeah,
but the thing is, do I want Maya to get one more victory? Yes. And do I think actually he's going to be in the UFC Hall of Famer? Yes, actually. Yeah. I think I would put him if we had one of those stupid systems like they have in the Big Four, with like the first ballot, the 10th ballot, which I think is stupid. It doesn't matter. Like, would I make Danny Maya first ballot Hall of Famer? Actually, yes. Maybe second ballot if necessary, but I that's the thing. I feel bad for Bilal. I want him to get the win because he got kind of the short end of the stick when he was trying to fill in.
Was Bilal Muhammad winning that fight? Good, Thomas Albano. Okay, all right. So I heard the MMA Twitter all this week and whatever, echoing that same thought, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because again, I could be, making my words short and sweet just in case I have to eat them later. Hell, I could be eating my words come Sunday morning. But the fact of the matter is, it wasn't like Bilal Muhammad was winning that fight. He was getting starched. That was almost a sacrifice bunt to not get a finish.
But it was also a filling fight.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't. Leon Edwards, there's levels to this ish, and yes, that would be it. And even if they did a rematch of Bilal and Leon Edwards, what is to be gained by other men? I mean, Bilal would have a lot more advantage in terms of a long-term trajectory.
See, the more you're talking about it, the more I'm actually coming around to Maya now.
See, and again, it's not because of hyperbole or what have you. These are things that just optics will lead me to believe. It doesn't have to be anybody else. You could love what you want to love and pick what you want to pick and what have you. But that's just what I see. I could be completely wrong. Come 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
I was only saying that because, like we were talking about, a setup fight for who. I feel like, where we were just talking about like the ladder, okay, Bilal Muhammad, we just snubbed him from a Leon rematch. We had Damian Maya, who doesn't want to retire. That's what I was thinking. I think the UFC, I'm not saying that this is something I would do, but we know typical Dana White, we know typical UFC. This is the kind of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say quick sub Damian Maya. If not, we're gonna be remembering Bilal's name.
All right, let's get into the big ones now. Speaking of Leon, first 5-round fight that is neither a title fight nor a main event. Leon Edwards, Nate Diaz. Look at those odds: -500 and +355. Now, I know Leon, just fought in March coming off a short break, and Nate hasn't fought since Masvidal. I know Nate Diaz, Leon is in his prime and Nate Diaz is not. But those odds are a little ridiculous if I don't say so myself. So, let's take a look at this fight. So, Leon Edwards actually has a 2-inch advantage in both height and reach. As we mentioned, he has no contest with Bilal that he won the first round with. He has had a 2020 to forget. He was supposed to fight Tyron, and then COVID hit, and then Khamzat, speaking of COVID, first Khamzat gets COVID, then Leon himself gets COVID, and then Khamzat's still suffering with COVID. So he ends up getting Bilal for that third time. But before that, 8-fight win streak, RDA, Cerrone, Barberena, Luque. His last loss is to the champ himself, Kamaru Usman. And with a win here, very potentially, he could, be the next title challenger, or at least after this supposed Usman Covington rematch that they want to book. Nate Diaz, again, he fought the 2 fights with Conor. Then he ended up taking a very long break, comes back to at 241, beats Anthony Pettis. I mean, Anthony Pettis has always been a very up and down kind of fighter since losing the championship. But,
Yep.
I mean, he ended his UFC run with 2 wins, but just lost to Clay Collard in the PFL. And then, of course, he ends up losing to Masvidal, doctor stoppage. But you know what? I'll apply the same logic that we were just applying with Bilal. Diaz was not winning that fight. He was down a good 3-0. And Masvidal, I'm not sure if he would have finished Diaz because it's hard to finish Diaz, but it was looking like it was going to be a 50-45 sweep of the cards at that point.
Yeah. Okay. I love Leon Edwards, right? And I think he did get the shaft of 2020. The Sky Sports had a big kind of, piece on him, hour-long piece to get you to know who Leon Edwards is and triumph over tragedy and all that jazz. But Nate fucking Diaz, man. And yes, he might have had a long sabbatical after Conor. Because why wouldn't you? You see those many zeros in the fucking bank account? Shit. AMC to the moon? Fuck, you're not going to hear anything out of me for a long fucking time. Good God. So with that all being said, I'm going with Nate. I don't know if it's the Cali represent, but, when he got featured in the embeddeds of this week, right? How could you not love Nate Diaz? Mugging for pictures. Some gal actually messed up her picture and it came out blurry. He took a fucking break from his joint, took the picture, went back, and then gave his joint to somebody else. Puff, puff, give, motherfuckers. So, I don't smoke, but that's Cali. That's Cali, and if you do it, kudos to you, whatever the fuck. I don't give a damn. But, yes, he's taking sabbaticals away from actually competing in MMA, but it's not like him or his brother Nick ever stopped training. It's not like their jiu-jitsu stops. It's not their world-class boxing stops. So their triathlete training stops. So, man, I would love to stop Leon Edwards, and it's not because I don't like Leon Edwards. I do. This is pulling at the heartstrings, but damn it, man. Diaz 209 represent.
I think Edwards is going to win this fight. Everyone's also pointing to the 5-round thing because Nate Diaz, more 5-round. I mean, Leon Edwards has had his fair share of 5-round main events too. Yeah. I think the RGA fight was 5 rounds. The Cowboy fight was certainly 5 rounds. I remember. I think Leon. I'm gonna go with Leon by decision here because I think he's just in his prime. I think Leon, can challenge Usman again for the championship. But if Diaz wins, oh, baby, I could only imagine how the MMA world would explode.
Oh my God. It's the biggest thing since the
sliced bread #2.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, that's Kendrick coming off the top and waylaying his opponent. Yeah, this is it, man. That Diaz versus Usman is sexy as shit. So Nate all day represent.
And again, I'm not sure if I would take any odds on this fight. Like Nate Diaz, that's really insane value considering the fact that Leon is on -500. I'm like, I think Leon is going to win. I think Leon, is a great contender, but -500 against Nate Diaz, that's off. I don't know what Vegas is doing.
Filthy fucking casuals. That's what it is.
Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno. These two had the male fight of the year for 2020. I'd say #2 overall because nothing was beating Wiley and Joanna last year.
Right.
But this was a hell of a fight, a contender for fight of the year last year, and dare I say that they just might put off a fight of the year contender again in this rematch. Davison, the favorite, at -250. But to note, he was the last guy to weigh in yesterday. He made 125, but he looked rough as shit.
Naked as shit like a jaybird, that one. Yeah, I mean, and it's weird, right? Because Moreno, whatever the fuck Davidson is doing in what is it, the what is the river? Rio, right? The Rio
Yeah,
Grande, whatever the hell, right? Amazon. There we go.
Amazon.
Yeah. Why am I getting my geography wrong? Anyway, no, whatever the hell he's doing, that lucha libre, whatever the fuck, it has stumped everyone, and I dig it. But I have a love-hate relationship with Davidson Federato. Him fucking missing weight that first, Benavidez fight, and then the one-way title switch, and he still won, and then fucking whooping his ass again in Fight Island in front of Megan O'Leary, who was outside. It was like, but then the advocacy of Federato, the fact that he's like, hey, if you want me to fucking fight again before the end of the year, pay me. I got fucking fight of the night. Let me get my money. And fucking Dana White came back with the money in a fucking bag, and he got the motherfucking bag, literally. So I did.
And Dana got the fight that more than delivered.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
and that's the thing. That's the thing to note, by the way. These guys last fought. They were only fighting on like 3 weeks after they both had their wins at UFC 255. These guys have had a full camp now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just, man, everybody but Federato, man. He's just that shove. There's something about him. He's not humble brag at all. He is all fucking braggadocious, man. And I don't know, man. I just think it's negative. I don't know if he's trying to, if this is who he is, if he's a natural heel or whatever. But it's got to be weird because you want more money you're a champion of a division that Dana White sees as collateral damage, and he would cut at a moment's fucking notice. He has in the past. Don't think he won't this time. He literally sent fucking, TJ to fucking kill the division, right? So, you're on top of a fucking down territory. Like that's it. I think there's more money in, Moreno as a champion. I think Moreno has worked for it. I dig it. He's a fucking Funko Pop collector, as am I. Here's a Kevin Smith. I fucking dig the Assassin Baby. I want him to, take out the God of War, the Brazilian God of War. I want it done. So I'm gonna pick Moreno.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I watched that first fight again, and obviously Figueroa would have won on the judge's decision, but the low blow with the 1 point ends up being a majority draw. But I don't know, 48-47 Moreno, I actually would not have been mad. I think there were a couple of rounds in there where Moreno got the better of Figgy and rocked him. This is one of those I don't think I could pick because this is just too close of a fight.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going with the heartstrings and whatever. And Davidson might be a great guy behind the scenes or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just a public persona. He's all heel. But also the flyweight, title, the men's side of things. I think there's nothing wrong with the women's side. There's always going to be a women's flyweight championship, but I think it's kind of scorched earth in terms of it. It needs a dominant champion. And yes, Davidson Federato fits the bill, but I want my bills filled and paid for by one Brandon Moreno. So I got Moreno as new UFC champ.
Should be fun. I think this is actually my pick for fight of the night either way. This is going to be another fight of the year contender. Has to be.
Hell yeah.
All right. Now, I'd say before our good friend Amy Kaplan, my other Fanside MMA, gets me going for all the UFC 263 stuff, which is starting in about 10 minutes. We have the main event. Israel Adesanya, Marvin Vettori, another championship rematch, middleweight title on the line. So I'm going to tell you guys a fun story. So the first time this fight actually happened, I wasn't really paying attention to UFC that night. I was too busy worrying about a master's, paper and dissertation and all. So I didn't get to watch this fight. I did not watch this fight for the first time until just a few days ago. I sat down and watched it. I do not understand how anybody had Vettori winning that fight.
Yep. Agreed.
I don't understand it. Israel Adesanya, I had him winning the first The second, Vettori, I could see with the third because Israel Adesanya got taken down and just had no answers in that round. But Adesanya was still landing the better strikes. I mean, Vettori landed a couple of good ones in the first, but I still think Adesanya had the control and everything. I don't get it. I don't get it. So this is one of those, and let's face it, the only reason this rematch is happening is number one, I guess to get more money because, as we just said, Dana, flyweights, hatred, Izzy, big star, and it's a make busy fight because let's face it, Whitaker should have the title shot, but obviously June wasn't good for him. And you know what? I say fine. Don't have him fight on 8 weeks' notice when that when he last fought Adesanya, it was a second round knockout. He's gonna want the full training camp and everything to get ready. And I think fine, let it be because maybe the restrictions will lessen and we can have Adesanya Whitaker again down in Australia and it be freaking epic like last time. So I'm fine with that. But Marvin Vettori, as somebody of Italian blood, would I love to see an Italian UFC champion like Vettori? Hell yes. But Adesanya against Adesanya, I don't know. So we look at the topology here, and Israel Adesanya, of course, coming off his first ever pro MMA loss to Jan Blachowicz, which is at 205. I think Izzy just looked way too small for 205. He's coming in 183 for this fight. He can even make middleweight too easy. He could go down to welterweight if he wanted to. But he'll have the 4-inch height edge, 6-inch reach edge. He's fought the better competition. He's had Gastelum. He's had Whitaker, Yoel, Paulo. Who's Marvin Vettori's biggest wins? Jack Hermanson and Kevin Holland. Not exactly great. Obviously, Marvin Vettori is, he's surged. He's a great MMA fighter. He doesn't have that one big win yet. Kevin Holland, Hermanson, maybe. Kevin Holland, certainly not. So, I just, I don't see. I understand Adesanya had trouble with the takedowns against Jan. But I still had him winning 2 rounds against Jan. And you know what? This is a 5-round fight. Adesanya won 2 rounds at least, if not all 3, against Vettori the first time. Yeah, I don't see Vettori winning this fight. I will go even one better. And I've said this on Jeff Brantley's Man in the Cage podcast this week. I'll give my hot take for this. Like you had your moment with Maya. 2nd round finish. Adesanya will wipe the floor with Vettori. Also because, and Jeff pointed this out to me, every time Adesanya has a struggling fight, so say the Romero fight, the last fight with Jan, Gastelum, he got troubled in. That next fight, he comes back and he puts on a performance, knocking out Whitaker, knocking out Costa. The pattern may continue here with Vettori.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know in what world. Now, all respect to Rafael Cordero, King's MMA, Vettori himself, right? There's just something unlikable. And not to say that Israel doesn't give you things not to like about him, because he gives you a wealth of things not to like about him. If you don't like tattooed face rappers and Naruto or whatever the fuck. I don't know. That's where maybe I'm just old, right? But the fact of the matter is, Izzy. In the same ways that I was talking about Brad Riddell, kind of you getting the win back for the city kickboxing team who had to leave, their home in the Pacific region to, like a week after their fallen comrade basically was laid to rest. I think that amongst the others, the loss to Jan Blachowicz, and MMA On Point had the interview, experts of the interview with the city kickboxing coach Eugene Behrman, right,
Yep.
where he said there was 1 of 2 ways that we could have went with Jan Blachowicz. We could have either went the skill set improvement or the weight mass gain, and they went with the skill improvement, and they still don't know why they lost that fight, theoretically speaking. So I just think all of those make for a perfect fucking recipe. A little bit of sugar, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of spice that will basically give the cake to one Israel, the last Albender, Adesanya, to retain his title.
It's going to be an absolutely fun night. I am excited for this. Mr. Woods, thank you again for joining me as you usually do before these UFC pay-per-views. I'm Tom Albano. Go enjoy UFC 263, everybody. We'll see you next month for UFC 264, Poirier McGregor 3.